In 1933, a struggling piano player in Paris wrote a song in about 30 minutes. He had no idea that song would eventually be blamed for over 100 deaths. His name was Rezső Seress. The song was called Gloomy Sunday. At the time he was broke, recently heartbroken, and completely unknown. He wrote the melody first, in a minor key so heavy that musicians later said it felt like grief itself. A poet friend added lyrics about a man planning his own funeral, to be reunited with his dead lover. The song was published in 1933. At first almost nobody noticed it. Then, in 1935, a singer named Paul Kalmar recorded it. And that's when the deaths began. A housekeeper in Budapest was found dead, having taken poison, the sheet music open in her hands. Weeks later, a government consultant shot himself in a taxi. His suicide note quoted the song's lyrics directly. Newspapers noticed the pattern immediately, and they gave it a name: the Hungarian Suicide Song. The story spread far beyond Hungary. In New York, reports claimed a man was found dead, with the record still spinning on his turntable. Some cafes reportedly stopped playing it entirely, afraid of what it might do to their customers. By the late 1930s, the BBC in Britain made a decision that lasted for decades. They banned the song from British radio entirely. That ban would not be lifted until the year 2002. But here's the part almost nobody expected. In 1968, the composer himself, Rezső Seress, jumped from the window of his small Budapest apartment. He survived the fall. Days later, in the hospital, he ended his own life a second time. His own newspaper obituary called him the composer of the song blamed for touching off a wave of suicides. For decades, that was the whole story. A cursed song that finally claimed its own creator. But here's what almost nobody mentions. Researchers who actually studied the death records years later found something very different. Of the many suicides supposedly linked to the song, most were never formally confirmed to involve the song at all. The song was written in 1933 during the depths of the Great Depression. Hungary already had one of the highest suicide rates in the entire world, long before this song ever existed. Fascism was rising across Europe. Economies were collapsing. Despair was already everywhere. The song didn't create that despair, it simply gave it a soundtrack. Once a newspaper links any death to a song, something predictable happens next. Every future suicide that happens anywhere near that song gets reported the exact same way. Psychologists have a real name for this pattern: suicide contagion through media reporting. The coverage itself, not the song, may have been the actual mechanism at work, which means the legend may have partly caused what it claimed to only describe. As for Rezső Seress himself, his own letters reveal something the legend conveniently leaves out. He wrote that he never managed to write another successful song after Gloomy Sunday. He spent the rest of his life broke, forgotten, and famous for exactly one thing he could never escape. That's not a curse. That's a very ordinary, very human kind of despair. The world didn't need a haunted song to explain his death. It just needed a better story than the truth. Here's what nobody tells you about stories like this. A song cannot end a life. But a headline, repeated enough times, absolutely can shape one. Gloomy Sunday was never the killer. The real mechanism was simpler and far more human. We needed someone or something to blame, to